So I'm thinking about marriage and thinking about the state of male-female relationships. I remember when I was in college, that was a big thing, particularly among the African American community back in the 80s. This whole male-female relationships. I remember there used to be Bible studies and just topics, and the venues where these topics were held were just packed with both men and women. And it seems today, when I look in the social media space, YouTube, etc., we're still talking about the same stuff. It's still a huge topic of discussion. Everything from the manosphere, whole red pill movement, pearly things. You know, it's like there just seems to be this this discussion about male-female relationships. I think it was highlighted with Kevin Samuels. Right now, there's a whole pop the balloon thing. You've got people talking about dating and the challenges in dating, women hitting the wall. I mean, all of this stuff about male-female relationships. And within this conversation, there's a subset that I'm finding that's coming out to the surface. And that subset is conversations that deal with marriage. And basically what I'm hearing is that marriage is not worth it. And for men, they're not saying for women. I think it's interesting because, again, this is coming from a lot of men. And what I'm hearing is the primary reason why marriage is not worth it is because of divorce. It's not marriage that's the problem. It's divorce. And what I'm hearing is that divorce strips men so much. And basically what I'm hearing in an unfair way, that men themselves, out of fear for getting divorced, for the woman leaving, are not interested in marriage. And what I'm hearing is that, for example, like the majority of marriages, I think the statistic that I heard was like 70%. 70% of marriages are initiated by women. And so most men are not the ones that are initiating these breakups. And so what's happening is that there's this line of thinking that is being propagated on the internet that is anti-marriage. And I'm not really hearing too much opposition to it. So as a Christian who happens to be black, African American, living here in the United States, I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't heard more pushback on that. And so I'm going to try to give a little bit of pushback on that today. I don't have my notes in front of me and things like that. I'm thinking about doing a podcast, but this might just simply be enough. I think that men who do not consider marriage and are not considering marriage because they're hearing from other men, older men, or maybe their peers who got marriage, and they have been negatively impacted because of the divorce. They're basically being scared out of marriage. And quite frankly, from what I'm seeing, I'm 57 years old. I'm on my second marriage. I've been married twice. Some people say I'm, stupid. Why get married again? But I believe in marriage primarily because I believe in God. And I don't want to go too deep into that right now. I have to come back to that. But I think that our thinking about marriage, I think in some respect, is a direct reflection of where we are in our relationship with the Lord. So the fact that you have more men, and I don't know the statistics, we'll have to look that up. The fact that we're hearing this lets me know that there is a decline. There's a perfect storm of a decline with people really not having any kind of religious affiliation and a decline in marriage. I think those two things go hand in hand. But in any event, so I think let's start off with the baseline. The baseline is right now, last time I checked, the divorce rate among everybody, at least in the United States, was 50-50. It was you had a 50% chance of getting divorced. And so if you understand that base statistics, regardless as to who initiated the divorce, your chances are the same of ending up in a divorce, whether it's initiated by the woman or whether it's initiated by the man. So the overall statistics show that marriages in and out of the church are 50% better, or 50% in terms of their success rate. So if that's the case, then what's happening is that for some reason, if it's 50-50 and you have looked at marriage as a risk, you have just simply determined you're really operating by faith. Well, you could argue both ways, I suppose, but you just elected the negative side. You just elected the side that says, hey, marriage is not good. But you're ignoring the other 50%. Other marriages that do last. And other marriages that do last, one of the things, this is why people need to be careful what they listen to, because it is clear that men who get married and those marriages last, they are financially better off. There's statistics that show that. So this idea that marriage is not worth it, no, marriage is one of the indicators of success. It's one of the wealth development strategies. Marriage. Married men have higher levels of income than non-married men. So if you want to succeed, you're literally better off getting married. Okay? So if you want to talk about risk reward, well, there you go. That by itself should be enough to say, hey, if you want to be better off financially, get married. Not don't get married because you're afraid of divorce. That's like telling me I'm not going to start a business because I'm afraid of failure. That's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. Most businesses, when they start, go out of business. They really do. And so the idea, well, I'm not going to get married because I don't want to risk it. What if you applied that same mindset to all kinds of stuff? I'm not going to start this endeavor because I'm afraid it might fail. That's the most unmasculine thing that I've ever heard. I'm afraid of what they might take away from me. So, so I think number one, you need to look up, if you're on the fence, you need to look up what the benefits of marriage are. Religion aside, God aside, just look up what the benefits of marriage are, and you will find that the married man has more sex than the unmarried man. I don't know where we get this myth from that single guys are just out there doing it, left and right. And while I don't, I'm sure at every end of the bell curve, you got individuals who are just like, out there having sex all the time, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you got some who are not having sex. I'm forgetting the name of the group of men who are sexless now, and not because they choose to be, but because they can't find a partner for whatever reason. But those are the extremes. That's not the norm, from what I understand. That's not the norm. So married men typically have a higher sex rate, more frequency in sex. So, to what are the two driving forces for men? For sure, wealth accumulation and sex. So it's like, hello. And so it's interesting to me that one of the primary mechanisms, literally, now I'm getting spiritual here, that God has put in place to satisfy and to allow a productive outlet for the male drive is now in society being railed against. If that's not one of the most antichrist things you have ever heard, you haven't read the Bible. So, I think black men in particular are hearing voices, again, from the manosphere that basically are just like, cutting off marriage at the legs and advocating for alternative type of relationships, including polyamory, polygamy, and looking at these as viable options, and then have the nerve to look to Scripture as a source of authority to affirm that decision, when Scripture clearly says that God's highest ideal is one man, one woman. When you read about polygamy in the Bible, you are reading about it from a descriptive standpoint. You're reading about a lot of stuff in the Bible. The Bible describes a lot of things, but it does not prescribe or condone everything that it's describing. Okay? There was a man who sent his daughters out for the town men to be sexually used. The Bible describes that event. It does not prescribe that people do that. So this to me just affirms how dark our hearts can be when we are set on a particular path, and then we look for scriptures to affirm our sinful behavior and say, see, it's in the Bible. See, it's in the Bible. Without asking, yes, it's in the Bible, but does the Bible confirm, affirm, prescribe the behavior that you are pointing to? Okay? Have you taken into the context of that behavior? It's like the Bible's not trying to keep you with altars and sacrificing sheep either. It describes that. But Jesus didn't come to continue animal sacrifice. And so you're talking about a human relationship, polygamy in particular, okay? But even polyamory, you're talking about a relationship that's akin to animal sacrifice. That's going backwards, not going forward. So I am here. I'm a red-blooded American male, and I want sex just as much as anyone. I need money to take care of my family and their needs as much as anyone. And so, hey, again, I'm going to push back on this this anti-marriage thread, this anti-marriage, and I'm saying this as a man that's gone through divorce, and I'm saying this as a man who's now on his second marriage. Again, divorce is not the end all and be all. Okay, it's not. And so all kind of things fail. We wish they wouldn't, but they do. And so, you stop having children because you have a miscarriage? Do you not start another business because you failed at the first? Do you not look for another house because the first house that you got was sold out from under you? I mean, come on. I recognize divorce. I know what it means. I lost a lot in my divorce with my first wife, and most of it I gave up voluntarily. Okay, gave it up voluntarily. And so if your standard, if your value is just simply material goods, if that's your highest ethic, your highest ideal, then yeah, you don't get married. That's the number thing, because that says a lot about you, and it says a lot about the woman that you attract. I'm like, wow. So that being said, let's go there. It's like, yes, there are things that happen. There are people who divorce you and you've done everything right. But let's face it, we live in a society where now you basically get to pick your spouse. There's no parents picking it for you. We don't have arranged marriages, stuff like that. You're picking who you want. And so, I remember watching Kevin Samuels, and he was talking about, why aren't you married? You got kids, da da da. Well, da da da. And he would tell them, he said, well, you picked them. You picked them. And so, instead of blasting the women, and in some cases the men that have put you through the divorce, maybe we need to look at how we're selecting people. Maybe we need to look at how we are presenting ourselves to people, and we're attracting. I read somewhere, or actually seen, that we attract, not our opposites, but the things that are like us. And so I don't know if that's true or not, but again, the bottom line is, maybe we need to take a look at how we go about selecting a partner and reevaluate some things. Just because you have access to all kinds of information doesn't mean that you still know how to basically pick another human being. It's like, what skill sets did you get? I was telling my daughter not too long ago, I'm like, I was listening to Pastor Vadi Bachman, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. And he was talking about, we spend time educating our kids, preparing them for school and things, but we don't spend that type of time preparing them for the most important human relationship that they will ever have, and that is with a spouse. And when he said that, it convicted me, because I thought about, well, how much time did I actually spend really teaching my children about that? And I realized, I don't think I did much. And this, I don't even want to go back and talk about what my own parents did or did not do. Forget examples. Actually sitting down with the children and imparting knowledge to them about how to select, what to look for in a relationship. And I realized I don't think a lot of us really do that. I question that anyway. And it seems, in the fact that so many marriages break up, and all of this stuff that's out there seems to be an indication that I'm right. we don't really spend a lot of time. And there's no mechanism, because it's not taught in school. People talk about financial literacy in school. They talk about sex education in school. But no one talks about relationships. Those are important too. That's why we have things now about soft skills. Why? Because people have a problem raising people. So I'm seeing the wisdom in the New Testament where it talks about older women teaching the younger women and things like that. This mentor idea, and I think we've really gotten away from that. So, this is just me just kind of talking out loud, seeing some things that I've observed, just sharing with you. What do you think? Let me know. Put a like if you like this, subscribe, and let me know what your comments are, what you think about all of this. And until then, God bless you, and until the next thoughtful stuff.